Mayor Hassel,
Here.
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Motta,
Here.
Commissioner Morse.
Present.
Mayor, we have 4 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 has been met.
Very good. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have got a proclamation for Juneteenth. Dave and whoever else is coming, come on up. All right, just hang out right here and I'll let you guys talk in a minute. Okay. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the slaves in the Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19th, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. And whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation. And whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. Whereas this is the 3rd year that Juneteenth will be celebrated as a federal holiday, this year, Monday, June 19th. Whereas this year's Juneteenth celebration starts on Wednesday, June 14th, with a lecture by Mariana Kistler Beach Museum of Art Museum specialist Nate McClendon in the Shamrock Room, followed by an art auction on Thursday, June 15th, at the Douglas Activity Center, followed by a grilling contest and Juneteenth Arts in the Park concert featuring Keith Washington on Friday, June 16th. Juneteenth concludes on Saturday, June 17th, with a 5K run and activities in Douglas Park, including a unity walk, food and activities for the entire family. And Juneteenth concludes that evening with another Juneteenth Arts in the Park concert featuring Kyla Jade. And whereas this year marks the 33rd year that Juneteenth has been celebrated in Manhattan, and whereas the theme of this year's Manhattan Juneteenth celebration is, "And Still We Rise, Strong, Proud, and Loud," and after years of unprecedented challenges in our nation, state, and city, this is an opportunity to come together as a community, regardless of age, color, disability, ethnicity, familial status, gender, national origin, race, religious belief, gender identity, or sexual orientation, to learn about the importance of this historic day. Now, therefore, I, Mark Hattasol, Mayor of the City of Manhattan, do hereby proclaim Saturday, June 17th as Juneteenth in the City of Manhattan, and urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and city, and to join in our celebration and activities. Dave? There you go. Let you say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. This is a great celebration for Manhattan and for Juneteenth. We're just so happy that we've been able to partner with the city for the last 10 years in City Park and at Douglas Park. And if you get a chance to come out, we've got some great entertainment, a lot of fun things to do on this weekend, on that weekend. We're just so happy that we've been able to partner with this Parks and Recreation over the years, and it's made it a wonderful program for the whole community. So please come out and enjoy, and thank you so much.
For the first meeting of the month, we allow for general public comments for items that are not on the agenda. If you want to make comments not related to an item on the agenda, this will be your chance. Members of the public that signed up in person on the list at the podium, which nobody did, will go first. And if you haven't signed up yet, please come forward in a minute here, sign in and tell us your name and address and what organization you're representing for the record, and for those listening or watching this evening at home. Each speaker has 5 minutes, can speak only once, and must stop speaking when the timer sounds. Neither the commissioners nor city staff will answer questions or debate an issue. We will take your comments under advisement. So if you're here to comment on any items on the agenda, you'll get that chance later. This is for non-agenda items. Any takers?
Hello, City Committee and Mayor Mark. My name is Brett Kale, and the reason I'm here today is to bring awareness to the fact that America is falling apart. The Royal Towers, recently condemned, still poses a risk for all residents and citizens of Manhattan. The Royal Towers, when it collapses, can crush the building and the people below. According to KSN TV, the city is still allowing repairs from the owners to the Royal Towers that might take them a while to get to. They currently have a weed and grass violation. Do you think they're going to cut it? No. The weeds are taller than the fence around the Royal Towers. The Royal Towers are over. Demo the building now before it's too late. As far as I know, there have been 3 recent building collapses in America, and it's due to systems in place like Manhattan has. A resident in your town of Manhattan was worried about their safety and their own well-being in the Royal Towers. They made a complaint to their landlord, their property manager, and then even their city. The fire department came out, did an outside visual inspection. The fire department said to limit walking, not to move heavy furniture, and told everyone that it was safe. The fire department secretly told the owners to put shoring poles under the building and avoided saying that in public posts, still acting as if everything is okay. Residents had no idea that the city requested the owner to put shoring poles up. Why would the city tell the landlords to put shoring poles under the building if they weren't concerned for the safety of their residents? The majority shareholder of the Royal Towers told me that BHS Construction quoted them almost $400,000 for the shoring poles. The landlord said they are not doing it and the building looks worse than ever now. BHS said it'd be an estimated $3 million just to repair the walkways. The landlord told me he still owes $2.2 million to the bank, and according to the County Tax Assessor's website for the Royal Towers, the assessed value is only $435,000. From a business perspective, it only makes sense to demo the building and build brand new apartments. But why would you even trust these people anymore after putting the lives of over 150 people at risk? The owners have had way too much time to repair the building, and still no one has done anything about the infestation of mold throughout the Royal Towers. Time has shown now that it does not matter if you're in an unsafe building. The proof is in the past. It took years for something to finally be done to the Royal Towers, and thank God I was there with the power of social media, or we could already have a Davenport, Iowa, Sea Isle City, or Champlain Towers repeat. May 31st, 2023, Davenport, Iowa, someone's leg was chopped in half, and there are still 3 missing people, only 7 hours from where we are located today. This was due to a partial building collapse that happened due to the same systems in place that are currently here. Immediately after the incident happened, the city tried to demo the building to cover up what just happened, and even with people still inside. One woman opened up her window and yelled for help. Is this what would have happened to the Royal Towers if it had gave way with people still inside? What if your daughter or son was in there? Davenport, Iowa has similar systems in place for such situations such as the Royal Towers, aka a building or portion of a building ready to collapse. The reason I bring this to your attention is because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. We cannot allow this to happen here. Let this be your final warning. Who is held accountable for what happens in this town? The police, the city committee, the mayor, or is it Trump's fault? I have thousands of comments all over social media from people who have claimed they used to live in the Royal Towers. People commented the Royal Towers were sketchy 5 years ago. They were scary 10 or 15 years ago. I keep hearing that there were similar complaints to the fire department in 2019 for the Royal Towers walkways that were apparently fixed. Putting a wall over cracks or concrete over a floor that's about to collapse is not a repair. From my perspective, our mayor, Mark, is in charge, and I believe the mayor needs to take a little control of our fire department temporarily until better systems are in place to prevent a tragedy. We must change because America is collapsing all over, and whose fault is it? Buildings all over America are falling down, and we are losing our people. People move to your city for education opportunities and more. And I will warn everyone who enters the city to get a little educated on building structures, because we can't trust our government right now or our landlords. So who can we trust? The accountability is on the government to govern the private owners of these buildings to ensure the safety of their citizens. The city of Manhattan shows signs of corruption in its government employees in numerous ways. It appears the government officials are tied to local businesses in personal ways that help the benefit of the government officials by using taxpayer money to help gain personal or business profit. The city of Manhattan, why is it the same day the Royal Towers was condemned, Midtown 12th construction stopped at the same time? Is this something related to the Royal Towers? Why was the land sold for $1? Was it tax evasion? You said it's going to be a tax-generating stream system through the assessed value of the property is much greater than $1. According to your city's website, property taxes are collected on the assessed valuation of taxable real tangible property. The county clerk provides an estimated assessed value and calculation of the property taxes to fund city budget based upon projected assessed valuation. The mill levy is calculated to fund ad valorem tax.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else care to comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing no one, we will close that part of the public comment and move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Morse, you got anything?
Yes. I just wanted to say that there was an excellent performance by the Manhattan Municipal Band on Memorial Day at the band shell in City Park. And again, the Arts in the Park performance last Friday was excellent. I'm looking forward to the Juneteenth events that are coming up, and I encourage the community to participate and join in those events. And be sure to mark August 5th. That's Spread the Word for Everybody Counts, and it'll be at Douglas Center. It's a gathering of all of the social service representatives in the community, and it's an excellent opportunity for just medical attention, or just help people figure out what the social services here in this community are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mata? Win?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment concerning, the rumor that keeps going on, was just mentioned here in public comments, that we sold the parking lot for $1, and that's absolutely false. That there was a contract that basically said the developer had to build a $40 million building within 30 months, and if he did not do that, he owed the city $2.5 million. So you can say the parking lot was sold for at least $2.5 million.
All righty. I don't have anything, so we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are those of a routine or housekeeping nature, or those items which have been previously considered and reviewed by the commission. A commissioner may request an item be moved for separate discussion and consideration immediately following the consent agenda, or at a different point on the agenda if desired by the commission. Anyone on the commission have any questions or comments? We have to appoint a couple of commissioners to different committees: Animal Shelter Operations and the Sunset Zoo Plains and America Habitat. Any volunteers?
I'd take the zoo.
All right,
I'd like the animal shelter.
very good.
That one.
All right. Any other questions about any of the items on the consent agenda? If not, we'll throw it open for public comment on items on the consent agenda. Same rules apply. You got up to 5 minutes, can speak one time, can't answer your questions. We'll take your stuff under advisement. All right, we'll close public comment on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse,
Yes.
Mayor Hassel,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
All right, we will move into the general agenda, and the first item will be considering rezoning the country. Whoop, timeout? Presentation. Oh, where's the presentation? Timeout. Sorry, here it is. Following, okay, who we got? Oh, Jack and the gang from the Flint Hills Discovery Center. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I missed right over that.
Good evening. I'm Jack Lindquist, president of the Flint Hills Discovery Center Foundation. On behalf of the foundation, we could not be more excited about what we're wanting to present tonight, and that is the Vigilance Bison Project. It's the next great piece of public art coming to downtown Manhattan. This privately funded project features a life-size bison cow and calf carved from solid limestone from Kansas by Emporia, Kansas-based artist Alan Tullochson, and placed prominently in front of the Discovery Center for the main entrance. We think it's the perfect symbol for Manhattan and the Discovery Center. It represents history and heritage, wildlife and wild places, and a family unit, all wrapped into one majestic package. Work is just getting started on this project, so the final piece will be done and ready to be in place in the summer of 2024. In the recent past, we could only imagine seeing a bison cow and newborn calf near the Blue Earth Village, just a short walk to the riverbanks. Soon we'll be able to celebrate that natural moment of life with this majestic life-size monument at the Flint Hills Discovery Center. Could we have the mayor for a photo quickly? And we just want the commissioners to be able to see what the plan is, where it will be, and how great it's going to look. It's going to be great.
Just as a commissioner, I'd like to say how pleased I am to see this, the foundation come forward with this idea and make it happen, and so thankful for your significant contributions to the Discovery Center. They make such a difference. We couldn't do what we do without, Susan Adam would say that, without the foundation. So thank you.
And there's a big party there Saturday, right? Saturday. Friday night. I'll be there. Yeah, that's the Night of the Cowboy deal, so. Go to the website, check it out. Okay, now we will move on to the general agenda, which is the rezoning of the Country Club Estates from PUD Plan Unit Development District to RH High Density Residential District. Stephanie Peterson will present.
Good evening, Stephanie Peterson, Director of Community Development. The first item for you this evening is the rezoning of what is being called the Reserve at the Manhattan Country Club. It is located generally southeast of the Manhattan Country Club, as you can see here. It's currently the Country Club Estates PUD, which provides for the development of 7 twin home structures and 2 additional single-family detached dwellings, so for a total of 16 dwelling units. However, since 1998, when that PUD was originally approved, only 5 of those structures or dwelling units were actually constructed. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property in order to develop the site for a higher density housing development. Most of the surrounding properties are zoned RL, low-density residential. However, the property immediately, or the several properties immediately to the east, are zoned community commercial. Given the site's proximity to this higher intensity commercial use, the reclassification of this tract would be appropriate. The RH district would also provide for a suitable buffer from that RL neighborhood to the south. If you think of it, it's kind of going from a more intense community commercial district and then having this step-down type of approach, having a higher density residential and then stepping down to that lower density residential. This is the future land use map that is found in the comprehensive plan. Due to the higher intensity effects of that community commercial that we just spoke of, the suitability of this site remaining low density residential, would likely be diminished. That is why staff is supportive of having this be a higher density use. Just as a reminder on this slide, you'll hear me say this pretty much with every rezoning we have coming up. The future land use map, it was adopted in 2015 as part of the comp plan, and it was never intended to be to specify what an individual parcel should be zoned. Rather, this is supposed to be used as general development patterns as our community continues to grow. So while this is shown on our future land use map as a low to medium residential property, for the reasons that I've already stated, is why it would be appropriate to zone it higher than what it is today. A couple more notes. Public Works did evaluate a level 1 traffic impact study that was submitted by the applicant, and they concluded that the volume of traffic generated by the proposed development in comparison to the existing approved development would not exceed use, function, or capacity of the surrounding residential roadways. This did go before the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board on May 25th. There were no public comments made at that meeting, and the Planning Board recommended approval of this rezoning request 6-0. I will stop there and take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for staff? Linda?
This is a first reading, rezoning, so the detail that we see we can count on, or is that just a concept?
As far as the site plan goes, we cannot count on that.
Yeah.
So that could change at any time as we get into either, well, for this, we would have to probably do replatting, or if it was during the building permit phase, that is when we really work out the details of that site, including access, grading, where the structures would be located, setbacks. So anytime an applicant chooses to submit a site plan, that is just for conceptual purposes. It could change after the rezoning.
So there'll be a plat come along, right?
Correct, yep,
Okay.
because this was a PUD.
Yeah, because I'm curious about parking if there's 60 units, that's a tight spot for 60 vehicles, I assume, because it's not, so far there's no bus stop next door.
Nope, there is not.
Okay.
Yeah, so parking would be worked out during that platting phase. And the number of dwelling units that are allowed to go on that site would be contingent on having enough room for adequate parking.
And do not know or have anything in the works for the property, the gray area, the property there where the church, just next door,
This
across
one?
the street? Yeah, you don't,
I do not
you don't,
know.
there's nothing in the works? at
Not that
all?
I'm aware of, no.
There's no parking lot over there, huh?
Yeah, I can't speak to that one, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I was just curious about, because this is rezoning and it's more general. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
That picture of the cul-de-sac with the lots, that's from the previous PUD?
Correct, that's the
That's not
PUD
the
that
new
exists
thing or
today.
anything?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you for now. Is there anybody from the applicant team want to kind of weigh in on this a little bit? Well, you're not making public comment. You're the applicant. You don't need to sign in.
I'm TJ Vilkanskis with Back Nine Development, and today representing BLT Properties as its managing member. I just wanted to make myself available for questions. This project is designed to be very similar to one that we recently completed in Grand Mere, known as Solheim at Grand Mere, which was a 72-unit condo building, 2 condo buildings. The intent of that was to sell the condos individually to end users. Due to the success of that project was the reason why we are moving forward with another project that's similar in nature. Right now, with cost of construction and interest rates, our challenge as developers and builders is keeping the price point down so it's more affordable to more end users. And using some density is our way to combat that. And that is why we felt like it was successful on the first project and why we are trying to do a very similar project here. Commissioner, to answer your question on the parking, how we did it in Grand Mere was the parking was situated underneath the building, and we plan to do the same type of idea here.
Yeah.
So when you do look at that, I agree with you. There is not a lot of space there, so we will situate the parking underneath the building when we get to that point.
Sure.
We have met with Manhattan Country Club, and they have been extremely supportive of the project. We're obviously locating a number of potential members right next door to them, and there already is a pre-existing cart path that goes directly up to the country club that the previous landowner had put in. But like I said, the reason I'm here is to answer any questions, so if any of you have anything, I'd be happy to address it.
Have you talked to the current residents about whether they get hit with golf balls? The houses? Because they're up high, and you're gonna be higher, I would say.
Yeah,
You
it's,
gotta hit it pretty hard to get it.
you gotta hit it pretty, you
I
gotta hit it
don't-
pretty
no,
far, you gotta hit it
no,
pretty
they
far
do
right.
get
They will, it will get
They
hit.
will.
It absolutely will get
They
hit.
do.
I mean, I can show you
talked to
in
people
relationship
who
to where the
live there.
driving range is, but, you know, there will be people that hit
Okay.
the building.
No, it's the building that gets hit, it's not the people. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's worth asking.
So are you looking at 3 or more story condos again, or?
Yeah, it's going to be very similar, and we're still working on the design and some things like that. But the idea is, I think one building will only be 2 stories with parking on the ground level, and the other building will be 3 stories with parking on the ground level. The previous project that we completed, both of those buildings were 3 stories with parking on the ground level. It tends to work itself out, our design, with the side sloping lot, and that's exactly what this is. If you drive by it, it's a side sloping lot, and that's the reason for the design.
All right, any other questions? Thanks for now. We'll turn it open for public comment on this item. Please come forward, sign your name, state your name. All right, we will close public comment. Any other questions or clarifications from anybody? All right, if not, is there a motion to be made here by someone?
Yeah, I move that we approve first reading of an ordinance rezoning an approximately 2.98 acre tract of land generally located southeast of the Manhattan Country Club and north of the intersection of Mulligan Place and Meadow Lane from PUD, Planned Unit Development District, to RH, High Density Residential District, based on the findings in the staff report and recommendation by the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse,
Yes.
Mayor Hassel,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
All righty, we will move on to the next and last general agenda item, which is consider rezoning of 407 Pottawatomie Avenue from RL Low Density Residential District to BC Business Commercial District. Stephanie.
Hello again, Stephanie Peterson. This is for the rezoning of 407 Pottawatomie Avenue from a single-family residential district to business commercial district. The subject property is generally located south of Pottawatomie Avenue and east of Temple Lane. The property currently has no structures on it and is being used as a laydown yard for the levee project. There was a single-family home here at one time, but it was razed in 2021 due to its dilapidated state. Today, the site is zoned RL, single-family residential, flanked on 2 sides by the ICS Industrial and Commercial Services District, including the concrete plant immediately to the east. To the south, the property is bordered by the levee, and to the west, a single-family residential district. You all know this, but there are 7 factors that should be used in determining whether to rezone a property. One of those factors is its suitability for the uses as it is currently restricted to today. In this case, the property is currently restricted to single-family residence, detached residence. However, as outlined in the staff report, the higher intensity commercial and industrial uses that are surrounding the subject site, along with the extreme difference in land use characteristics, think hours of operation, lighting, noise, so those between the low-density residential and the higher intensity commercial and industrial uses make this inherently incompatible for a single-family residence at this point. This relationship is anticipated to diminish the site's continued viability for a single-family residential use. Thus, the applicant is looking to rezone the property to business commercial, a lower intensity commercial use that would act as a buffer between that single-family neighborhood and the higher intensity industrial and commercial uses to the north and to the east. The image here is taken directly out of the Manhattan Development Code. The business commercial district allows for small-scale commercial office that has site design standards to ensure compatibility with adjacent neighborhoods or abutting neighborhoods. These include standards governing landscaping, maximum lot coverage, as well as outdoor lighting. A range of permitted uses could include office or professional uses, so banks, medical offices, general office space, pharmacies, barbershops, salons, community gardens. The permitted uses in the BC are actually quite limited. In fact, some of the same uses that are allowed in the RL district are also allowed as a conditional or, let me back up. Some of the uses that are allowed in the BC are also allowed in the RL as a conditional use or a limited use. I do have the very last slides, should you want to see it. I've included all of the permitted uses that would be allowed in the business commercial district, should you be interested in seeing it. As a reminder, there's not a specific use you're permitting tonight. It would be any of those allowable uses. Another factor in determining whether to rezone a property is the conformity of the proposed change with the comprehensive plan. Again, this is the future land use map that was adopted in 2015 as part of that comprehensive plan. And again, the comprehensive plan states that the future land use map is not intended to provide a specific land use designation for any individual parcel, but rather establishes these broad guidelines that we use then as staff to aid in the future growth and development and the recommendation that we make to you. The extension of the commercial uses to one block west and south would not be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, given that pattern development that we look for. The comprehensive plan also anticipates the blending of commercial and residential uses, and it identifies that office and service commercial uses as complementary to single-family residential zoning districts. It also states that the residential uses may be in combination with non-residential land uses. There's also supposed to be a highlight here. I'm not sure where it went. But so this paragraph down here, as well as the one that is highlighted, they reference either a master planned neighborhood or a neighborhood center, as that anticipates really the future greenfield development. However, these same principles can be applied when we look at our established neighborhood and incorporating business commercial district into those. A great example of where we have business commercial that immediately is adjacent to single-family residential is along Points Avenue, both the half blocks north and south, all the way from downtown to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Oh, there we go. This item went before the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board on May 25th, where there were several public comments regarding how the proposal would potentially impact the residential nature of the area. The Planning Board voted to approve the rezoning 3-3, but because the vote ended in a tie, the motion failed. Three members of the three members that were opposed to the rezoning cited three factors as listed here. At this point, the Commission has three options before you for proceeding. First, you may adopt the Planning Board's recommendation and deny the rezoning request by a simple majority vote, so three of you. The second option is to override the Planning Board's recommendation and approve the rezoning request with a 2/3 majority vote. That would require all four of you. And then the last option would be to return this recommendation, or to return the recommendation to the Planning Board for reconsideration. You would also have to make a statement specifying the basis of the Commission's failure to approve or disapprove. At that point, after it's sent back to the Planning Board and they take action on it again, it would return to the Commission, in which it would require a simple majority vote. Yes, sir.
Maybe this is a question for Katie. So it's 2/3 of 5, is it 2/3 of 4?
The statute says that it's 2/3 of the membership of the governing body, so the membership would be 5. So it would be of the 5, so you would need 4 votes to override. If you didn't have those votes, you could do the option 3. It does only take 3 or a majority to send it back to the Planning Board, and then, of course, when that comes back, it would only take 3 to override at that point.
Sorry to interrupt. Anything else?
Nope,
you got?
that was actually the end of it. Here's the slide. Yep. And I can, if it's too small, I can run through it too, just general categories. These are, as I mentioned, these are all of the outright permitted uses. So if this were to be rezoned, any of these could happen. There are additional conditional uses or limited uses that are outlined in the MDC. However, if it's a conditional use, that would have to go to the planning board to receive approval. If it's a limited use, staff would review that and then to see if it was compatible with the neighborhood.
Any
And this
other
is
questions?
every use.
Good.
So you could still build a single-family home?
Yep, you can.
All right, any other questions for Stephanie? Thanks for now. We'll let the applicant, if someone from the applicant's side wants to tell us more.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Chris Eichman with Midwest Concrete Materials. Appreciate you taking the time to consider our request to rezone. So what we're looking to build is a training center, about 3,000 square foot roughly. We have obviously found that workforce development is a key to our business and everyone's business in this time, and that we feel if we build a new training center, we can tailor it to our needs, then we can be a more successful business. We purchased this property back in 2020. It was in disrepair. It was unlivable. It was really, I mean, it was really probably taken over by squatters. There was junk, trash, everything. It was not a livable piece of property. So we got a permit and we raised the property. It took us a while to figure out maybe what we wanted to build, and then we came up with the training concept idea. What we would do is build a building that would house our, we've got a truck driving simulator, so we would use that to train drivers. We would do MSHA and OSHA training. MSHA's mine safety health, OSHA's occupational safety health, first aid, CPR, any environmental training that we have to do. That would all be done in this center. It's directly catty corner from our corporate office. It's where most of our employees work. A general day, it would typically be no more than 3 or 4 employees at any one time in the building. There will be 4 offices. 3 to 4 at a time training is really about the max to have effective training. There may be weekly toolbox talks where an entire plant, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, women may be in there. But for the most part, 3 or 4 employees. It will really not increase the traffic because we already do it. We just don't do it as effective as we could if we built this new building. Obviously, if you've been by our office, when we purchase a property or build a piece of property, have a piece of property, image is important to us. We take care of the landscaping. We keep up our building maintenance. Obviously, you've seen our trucks in town. We like clean trucks. Training our employees is very, very important to us. Our image is very important to us, and this will allow us to continue with that. The existing building we have, it just doesn't quite meet the training needs that we have. It's not quite as big. The office is smaller. So if we're allowed to build this, then we can really improve our image as a safe company, as a place where people want to come to work, which we can serve the residents of Manhattan with concrete and aggregates and the other services that we provide. So if there's any questions?
So besides the building, what else is going to be on the property? You going to have some parking?
Yeah,
gazebo or anything?
there'd be some parking. Obviously, landscaping will be important. We've got a landscape plan that Blueville put together for us with some ideas on some trees and shrubs and whatnot. Again, if you've been by our office or any of our plants, Walmego's a great site to see where landscaping and whatnot is important to us. Being immersed in the community is very, very important to MCM.
All right.
And hours of operation, is that pretty much just during the day, or?
Yes, 7 to 5 is a typical workday for us. We have two ex-highway patrolmen that are our safety training people, and then we have an environmental safety manager. So those three folks would generally work in that office. They already work in the region as it is now, but they would work in this office.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now open it up for public comment. And members of the public who signed up, we've got Elaine will be first speaker. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. State your name and address, and when your 5 minutes is up, you'll need to stop, and we will take your comments under advisement.
Brought some technical help here, technical genius.
Submitted some presentation materials. And then you did want to reference this map later. You want me to do that first one first?
That's great.
Okay. You can introduce
Can you
yourself.
make it bigger?
Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm Elaine Moore. I live at 800 South Juliet. And just in case you didn't have time to observe our neighborhood in person, I brought a couple of videos of what we see every day, all day, except for Sunday and half of Saturday. Locating an industrial area next to a residential area is always a bad idea, and it's something to avoid. But this situation was created 50 years ago when our area went through urban renewal. Since then, Pottawatomie Avenue has been the dividing line, a buffer, if you will, between light manufacturing, service commercial on the north side of the street and R1 single-family residential on the south. This division has worked well for over 50 years. But in the past couple of years, MCM has experienced a growth spurt with the accompanying increase in truck traffic and congestion. And in 2020, they bought 407 Pottawatomie and actually crossed the line, so to speak, the dividing line that had been there that separated these two incompatible areas for years. MCM is asking to rezone 407 Pottawatomie to business commercial. Did you know that the closest other place that's zoned business commercial is on Points? And 407, on the other hand, is surrounded by park land on one side and residential land on the other. To change this one small parcel of land to business commercial can only be described as spot zoning, which is also something that most planners try to avoid. When MCM is gone, this proposed building would stick out like a sore thumb and would be a legacy to all those who voted to approve it. Maybe you noticed that I said when MCM is gone. If you look at the comprehensive land use plan here, the star is the property we're talking about today. There's something missing, and that is the 11 acres of heavy industry that is occupied by MCM right now. Our future plan for Manhattan doesn't include a concrete plant in there. If you ask 100 people where a concrete plant should be located, you'll get answers like in an industrial park, duh, or someplace with other heavy industries. Not a single one would say next to downtown or in a residential area, which is the situation we're in right now. Just imagine if we could go poof and make MCM disappear from its current location. How much housing do you think we could fit into 11 acres in this location, this prime location, within walking distance of downtown and next to a couple of parks? You could make quite a dent in the housing shortage if this area was changed to housing instead. And where would MCM move to, you ask? And that's a fair question. They have 147 acres out at the airport already, and I'm sure they thought of this possibility already and maybe have some contingency plans in place. But maybe there could be some kind of trade with land that the city owns already and trade 11 acres of ours for 11 acres of theirs. This would be a win-win proposition for all involved, and MCN would have the room to grow all at once without having to deal with rezoning like tonight or having to deal with pesky neighbors like us. Manhattan could have an entrance that matches the image that we want to project for the town, for our city. As for 407 Pottawatomie, I've talked to the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation and I've talked to Habitat for Humanity. And they both would be very interested in establishing a fund for collecting donations to purchase this plot of land from MCM. It would then be donated to Habitat to build 4 new homes, specifically 2 duplexes, which would fit nicely on this piece of land. It's 1.22 acres. What the decision tonight comes down to is, does Manhattan need another office building or does it need affordable housing? Which is why I'm asking you to accept the planning board's denial and agree with the denial for rezoning tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Anybody else care to speak?
Good evening. My name is Scott Sewell. I live at 85 Pride Drive. This all started back May 23rd of 2021 when MCM made its first attempt to change the zoning. They were denied 6-1. They came back with the changing of the zoning to the BC. The 407 property has houses to the west. It has the Southeast Park to the east. It has linear trail to the south. North, there's 2 small businesses. They're in the tree line. To the east is a buffer from MCM. So you don't really see that, MCM, the plant, and all that. Making this a perfect lot for a house, and allowing them to change the zoning and build it only lowers the appeal of the property down there. The zoning should have been addressed before the demolition, before the house was tore down, before all the big beautiful trees were destroyed and ripped out. But with the city's approaching MCM, as stated by Barry Beagle and Chris Eichman, maybe this is already promised. Barry Beagle never faltered in his approval of the zoning change. Mowing the grass, putting in landscaping does not make a good neighbor. By allowing the long-standing boundary to be changed will only encourage MCM to continue on their push on the neighborhood, as seen with them having the right of refusal for the 431 property, which I am currently owner. We're still in probate court. Hopefully, by the end of the month, I can get this settled and we can start working on that house and get it back the way it should look, the way my grandmother would have it look. With the best access to Southeast Park being Temple Lane and Pottawatomie from downtown area, the thought of industrial buildings as a corridor going into the Southeast Park doesn't seem very appealing. The MCM employees already take up majority of the parking in the city, the Southeast Park, confusing visitors and making it difficult. I requested a meeting with Rob Eichman on May 16th with the intention of possibly purchasing 407 property and putting a house on it, back the way it was. He informed me too at the time that he was approached by the city to purchase the property. They wanted to put a storm drain down through there, and that would help with their project. I was then told that he had the right of first refusal on the lots in front of the 431 property. That would allow him to keep pushing the neighborhood out. And it seems that that is his agenda. By purchasing the right of first refusal of the 431 property, it shows that MCM is not a good neighbor, but a land grab company. A good neighbor would not jump to purchase property while it's still in probate and not allow the property to be kept in the family. I hope you will deny their request for the zoning change, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Next.
Good evening. I recently served on the steering committee for the
what's your
Mount
name,
Housing.
ma'am?
Can you hear me?
State your name.
Donna Shankamlin,
There you go.
1922 Leavenworth. Thank you. I recently served on the steering committee for the Manhattan Housing Market Analysis, and I want to use this opportunity to reiterate key findings of that 2022 report. Key to it was the theme of inventory shortage. As of spring 2022, when that report was completed, Manhattan had a very low inventory of available homes listed for sale. That has not changed. There was just 1 month of supply at that time, and the report states that a balanced market typically has 5 to 7 times that inventory. Within this general description of shortage, the study highlighted impacts on low-income households that are struggling to access homes in a highly competitive, low-supply market, young professionals that the city is attempting to draw as part of our overall workforce development strategy, and seniors, those aged 55 or more, the fastest-growing age cohort in Manhattan. The study concluded that there's a demand for between 2,800 and 4,400 additional units of housing. Space for residential use in Manhattan is quite limited. Where will these units be developed, and how do we all judiciously address the use of districts within our city limits to provide housing to our workforce? I currently serve on the city's Workforce Housing Steering Committee, and I facilitate meetings also of the Workforce Solar Housing Partnership. There are a significant number of Manhattan residents, workers, and public, private, and nonprofit groups all engaged now in the difficult challenges of meeting our housing needs. Given all of this critical attention being paid to housing needs, any proposal that removes residential use from a neighborhood needs to be approached with particular caution. Workforce housing is of special interest given the opportunities for expanded employment that we've been given here, and a widely expressed fear that the new employees will be forced to settle out of town for lack of proximate housing aligned with their salaries. Not knowing the specifics of MCA's employees at their operation on Pottawatomie Ave, it might be instructive to see whether their commuting distance to work and their degree of cost-burdened housing might align with other area employees. The space at 407 Pottawatomie could be dedicated to workforce housing rather than to a parking lot. The linear trail, also, that is adjacent to this space is a major recreational asset to Manhattan. And we see studies that demonstrate how access to recreation ranks very high in young professionals' choices of which communities to live in. With Temple Lane off of Pottawatomie Avenue serving as an on-ramp to this very popular trail, it'd be encouraging to see alternative plans proposed by this employer to take advantage of the site's desirability as a residential asset. In summary, I urge the commissioners to adopt the Urban Area Planning Board's recommendation and deny this rezoning request. But I also urge the applicant to consider alternative uses for the property that they now own and the benefits to the community that improved residential development can offer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay. I'm going to try to set up my laptop. I didn't have a time to go home after work, so I'm Stephanie Sewell. I live at 85 Pride Drive, and I'm going to be approaching this a little bit different from the neighbors just because I am not a current member of the community. But like I said, I'm a teacher and I hold a master's degree in educational leadership, so my comments will kind of be coming from that point of view. But I also grew up on Temple Lane, just south of the Linear Trail. So I also am a previous longtime member of that community, luckily. So during my studies of leadership, of course, I learned it's important to take the balcony view, which I'm sure you all recognize, which is just taking a chance to look at things from everyone's point of view, all of the stakeholders that are involved, right? And we know that sometimes certain stakeholders in that issue have a little bit higher weight in their opinions and their viewpoints because they have a little bit closer, it's a little bit closer to home for them. So I want to say that the neighbors showing up for meeting after meeting and telling you how much this is going to negatively affect their community, in my opinion, has a lot of weight to it because they wouldn't be showing up time and time again each night if it was just something that was easy for them to write off and pass off. So yeah, in this case, they're the ones who see the MCM trucks daily. And to me, it's not just the cement trucks. It's in this rezoning issue, but it's actually all of the traffic. The cement trucks bellowing down the road, of course, are the main thing that we mostly think about when we think of MCM, but also the influx of cars that come in for day-to-day's work, leaving for lunch, taking off to go home at the end of the day. And although it was said that this won't bring any more traffic, of course, as I was a child on Temple Lane, the traffic has already grown greatly, right? Just like our community. But when I was little, my brother Tim and I would ride everywhere on our bikes. We would go down to the Oppie's gas station and get snacks, and our parents told us just to make sure to look at the top of Temple Lane and make sure no trucks were coming over because there's a few fast vans that would go to the end of the lane. As I got older, there was a lot more traffic going down Temple Lane. Howie's has a lot down there, and they have also big trucks. There's a borrow pit down on Temple Lane that also brings trucks and dirt. For people to go down there to Brits also, Brits is at the end of the road and people will go down and get flowers. So in the last 10 to 15, 20 years, traffic on Temple Lane has already increased a lot. And I would go as far to say that Temple Lane and 407 is not a buffer for industrial. You know, I would say that Temple Lane is one of the easiest ways to access the linear trail. So to take that away and turn it into a buffer for business doesn't seem like it makes the most sense for that community. And of course, as a teacher, the children are what I think about first. And as somebody who grew up down there, the children are what I think about first and something I haven't heard being brought up yet. As a teacher, I know that children are already in critical need of connection with their communities and with the people in them. We can't take opportunities away from children to get outside, to be in their communities, to get to know their neighbors by rezoning it to accommodate for business. When companies get too big to grow in their area, they find new areas. They don't tear down houses in historic neighborhoods. That's not what good neighbors do, and that's not what good leaders would allow. Rezoning 407 would show Manhattan that the City of Commission values businesses and money over children and families. And from what I've heard tonight, even beginning with the Juneteenth, that's not what I'm getting from this commission. So I don't think that that's what the message that you would want to send would be. But children are the future, and that's undeniable. Not money, not business, not greed. The future that we want is one where children pour their efforts and energy into their communities, a community where families feel seen and supported by the leaders of that community. We want a future where children have endless opportunities to connect with their communities. That's what makes us stronger, not accommodating for money and business. So Back to what good leaders do, they plan for long-term. We know that MCM is planning for their long-term as they have the first right of refusal for also 431. So 407 is the short-term, as we're seeing right now, but we can already see that their long-term is to expand. There's just not room down there for them to expand without taking houses out one by one and rezoning that to be business. So I request that you also deny this rezoning request and support families and neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anybody else care to comment?
Hi, I'm Debbie Sewell. I live at 85 Pride Drive. I want to say that recently a bipartisan bill was signed that expands and prioritizes affordable housing development throughout the state. This shows just how important the need really is. The shortage of quality affordable housing is one of our state's biggest barriers to growth and development. Mayor Hattasol was recently quoted as saying, "We've got plenty of apartments. We need single-family houses, duplex, half-plexes, townhouses, row houses, somewhere where people can get into for less." That I agree with. Specifically for this property in this location. Who wouldn't want to live within walking distance of downtown? Linear Park is mere steps away. Shopping, arts, dining, entertainment, natural area are all within direct eyesight. The families love riding their bicycles on the linear trail, and we look forward to the return of their friendly waves in our community as they enjoy the linear trail when it opens when construction is complete. Multiple times a month, we walk from our home into downtown for events, dining, farmers market, and to take full advantage of the numerous entertainment. We also look forward to a future of downtown riverfront development, a future development that this committee unanimously approved, resolve in support for fundraising efforts. Each new investment along the rivers encourages activity and unleashes vitality and increases land value while providing places for people to enjoy. These are all examples of how this area continues to grow in desirability, a direct contradiction to the staff opinion that this lot is not desirable for residential development. When planning a riverfront development, let these core principles lead the thinking. Feature the riverfront as the front door. Showcase the river's history. Activate the riverfront. Limit obstacles and connect with the river. Engage with the water. Connect seamlessly along the riverfront and into neighborhoods. Repair and enhance the environment. Employ high-quality architectural materials and sustainable engineering practices. When you think about this property, your voters expect to be forward-thinking and keep the ideal vision in mind. When residents and visitors enter our community from the east, one of the first things they see today is MCM lot, which is void of beauty and full of heavy machinery. Allowing this rezoning concretes this expanding business as the first impression and face of our community. 407 Pottawatomie has great potential to be that seamless connection between the riverfront, trail, and our neighborhoods. If it remains residential, I ask you to stand behind the history and diversity of this neighborhood. I ask you to be a forward thinker and visionary your voters expect. I ask you to show your commitment to creation and preservation of needing housing and the opportunity this property holds to be the home of the innovative and involved community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other people want to comment?
Hello, my name's Robert Moore. I've lived at 800 South Juliet Avenue at the corner of Pottawatomie over 30 years now. I've heard the frustrations of business leaders in their struggle to attract people to come and work here in Manhattan due to an affordable housing problem. I have to trust our community leaders are working together to solve this problem. Tonight, this rezoning issue shows a contributing example to this problem. It's going to be more office buildings or built over affordable housing. We've made our older homes on Pottawatomie into a stable neighborhood. I know it's too easy to tear down a house. We had to fix ours up, and it took years. I intend to enjoy life and retire here. There are at least 2 families on our street raising their young children here. Our homes were here long before MCM even thought of arriving at their present location. With increasing truck traffic resulting from their western expansion on their side of Pottawatomie, perhaps they've outgrown their downtown location. They have properties elsewhere for their driving instruction building. Of course, everyone in this room tonight wants the safest drivers, just as MCM does. But they have bigger resources to expand elsewhere. We have only our homes, which we've worked hard to maintain and enjoy. I know that MCM is an important employer and part of this community, but it's strangely ironic that MCM, who helps build homes in our community, would encroach on ours. Even if they were to get 407 Pottawatomie, I don't believe this would stop their expansion. Information about the right of refusal on the front lots of 431 Scott Sewell's childhood home makes light of possible further intentions, setting up a continual domino effect on our street. And we're not going away. Do we need another office building? Or are we going to the direction of affordable housing that our city leaders are starting to address? Please deny this rezoning and send a positive message to future home preservation and ownership. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Good afternoon. I'm John Flavin. I live at 809 South Juliet Avenue, just a few houses west along Pot Avenue of the property in question. And as at the previous 3 rezoning hearings, I oppose rezoning 407 Pot Avenue. And I'll say the same thing now that I said at all the other hearings because my opinion hasn't changed. If anything, it's just gotten more emphatic. Until I heard about MCM's interest in the Sewell, what's essentially the Sewell's historic house front yard property, I had absolutely nothing against MCM. Except for that, I still don't. That's my personal opinion. Yeah, they put a lot of traffic on the road, a certain amount of noise, but they were here before me. And I believe they do provide a valuable service, and their drivers have always been courteous to me at the intersection. So I got no problem with any of that. Up until now, as far as I was concerned, they were a good neighbor, a different kind of neighbor, but as far as I was concerned, it was fine. You know, they were staying in their lane, we were staying in ours. It worked great. That's what the master plan had envisioned back when it was written. But now that we hear that they've obtained, I don't know how, but they have obtained this right of first refusal on, like, you know, what I think of as the front yard of the Sewell's house, you know, that changes my perspective. It ought to change yours as well. Why else would they be doing that, you know, if they didn't have some interest in jumping Temple Lane and keeping, you know, as I put it, rolling up the neighborhood? What else? Why else would they do that? That's been my concern, our concern, since the very beginning of this series of hearings, even before we knew about this right of first refusal business. So I really believe that right now, you're not really deciding just the fate of 407 Pot Avenue, but the fate of, the rest of the residences down the street, south of Pottawatomie Avenue, because I think that if this gets passed, 2 years later, we're going to be having the same conversation about 431 Pot Avenue, and by that time, the historic house behind it, and I'm just a few doors down from that. Back in 2017, as many people have heard me say in the past, Manhattan is the first place that I have ever lived in that I didn't know I would be leaving before I even got here. So I pulled into town. I spent a year finding my little retirement, what I hope to be my retirement spot at 809 South Juliet, like 4 houses down. And it's perfect. It's affordable, it's flat, big enough for a yard or, for a workshop and a garden. It's got great neighbors. We got welders, we got, organic farmers and stuff like that. Great neighbors, great community. You can look out your window and not see in your neighbor's window. It's perfect. You may think of it as an odd community, and in a way it is. It's a little eclectic. It's great. If you knew it the way we know it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And it's worth preserving. It's unique in Manhattan and successful. So anyway, it's easy to say that this new proposed use, this new business, commercial, whatever, is, low impact. It's easy to say that. It's easy to say that Temple Lane will be a new barrier, Well, we can see, a new barrier to encroachment of commercial into residential. Well, if Pot Avenue isn't a good enough, big enough barrier, for encroachment of commercial into our residential community, Temple Lane isn't going to be either. And you all know that, and MCM and everybody else knows that too. Again, I think you're not just talking about 407 Pot Avenue here. I think you're talking about our whole little community all the way, west along the south side of Pot Avenue. So anyway, to keep from repeating myself, I'll close. I think you've got 3 really good reasons, any one of which, in my humble opinion, would be enough to deny this rezoning. And one, it's a deviation from the original master plan. It was well thought out. It's working exactly the way it was supposed to. We're coexisting very well together right now. If everybody would just stay in their lane, as I think of it, we'd be fine. It's great. But this rezoning deviates from that with no, compelling reason. It's spot zoning.
Yep.
Got another minute?
Nope, you're out of time.
Nope,
Thank
okay.
you.
Well, there's 2 other reasons, but
Pass them on to somebody else. Okay.
Hi, my name is Maggie Berger. I live at 501 Pottawatomie Avenue with my husband and our 5-month-old, who we couldn't find childcare for tonight, so he's here. We only have 1 lot between us and Temple Lane, and that lot is the 431 lot. So this is very relevant to us, very important to us. We bought our home because of the proximity to the 2 trails, because we have Flint Hill views in our backyard. It's beautiful. We've had bobcats, coyotes. We've watched a family of deer raise their babies there. It's a cool little spot. I know it's different. I mean, we have a lot of room for our child to grow and to play. And like all the other families in the neighborhood, we chose this place, and we are choosing to be here. We don't have a lawyer to neatly articulate what we're trying to say. We just have a neighborhood full of people that care and are taking the time to have meetings outside of these and keep coming back, even though having a 5-month-old, this is not easy to do after work and keep our routine. Our bedtime routine is not going to go well tonight. But I know that they are employers in this town. They're a big company in this town. we have 7 strongly affiliated small businesses that all of us are a part of, either owners or contributors to those businesses. And I mean, this is our neighborhood, this is our home, and to continue to be a part of the community and part of those local businesses, this is where we live. It's important to us. And so, you know, please, commissioners, take into consideration that the neighborhood does care, and we do not want this rezoning. We do feel that this threatens our security to, you know, continue to live the way that we want to in this area of Manhattan. Thank you for your guys' time.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Bill Barr. I'm an attorney with Arthur Green Law Firm, and we represent the applicant, Midwest Concrete Materials, Inc. I want to thank you for your service to the Manhattan community and for your consideration of this request. As indicated as a little background, the property was previously a single-family residence that was in disrepair and was removed. MCM worked with the city to initially have the property zoned for industrial commercial services. After receiving feedback, as you can see from the neighborhood and also from the planning board, MCM revised the request for the current application to be rezoned to BC Business Commercial. MCM has been a great community partner for a significant number of years. They're a significant employer in the community, and they work on a number of city projects, including street improvements and development projects, and also residential projects. This project, the training office, is a mechanism to have an office building to be used for employee training facility for the betterment of the company, for their employees, and for the community. We believe the proposal is a great compromise and good use for this property. We agree with the staff report recommending approval and the analysis made in that report regarding the factors for your consideration. The key items for your consideration are as follows. There's no doubt that the area is a diverse mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial land use. I will note that regarding the notice that was sent out at the planning board level, it went out to only one other residential property. We think it's unlikely that the subject property would remain viable for residential use. As noted in the staff report, the subject property is bounded by industrial and commercial use. The predominant character of the area is commercial and industrial use. We would argue that even the residential area is somewhat consistent with the blended use, as there are some residential properties that are utilized for commercial uses. MCM doesn't object to that, but it's just a fact of the current use of the property in the area. As noted by the staff report, the office use is regarded as a suitable transition use between higher intensity commercial and industrial uses and lower intensity residential uses. The proposed office use would be a perfect blend and would provide a buffer between the two uses. MCM views it as a reasonable compromise and compatible with the area and certainly a suitable transition. There's been some discussion about historical protection for the adjacent property. That hasn't happened to date. This project doesn't prevent that from occurring in the future if that owner wanted to pursue that. There's been some concern by the neighbors regarding the impact on the area, and that's understandable. But this office building will actually help stabilize the area and will improve the value of the area. I think it's important for the commission to, as I'm sure you understand, this application relates to this one property only. There's been a lot of discussion about a first right of refusal on an adjacent property. That is not in MCM's name directly. This application relates to just this one property. MCM believes that this small-scale commercial office would be a viable use for the site without compromising the neighboring residential property. MCM wants to be a good neighbor and certainly takes care of the properties and will do the same with this office building. The training building concept fits well within the neighborhood due to the neighboring commercial and industrial businesses along the north side of Pottawatomie, as well as the commercial businesses on the south side of the levee. The combination of business and residential uses has existed for a significant period of time. MCM is committed to improving their image not only with aesthetic improvements, but also by investing in their employees. The training building will improve the company as they will have a better prepared and skilled employees. It is also reality that if the property is improved with the office building, it will create value for the city tax rolls and will support an important community partner and business. If the property remains vacant, there is no additional value to the city and no additional improvements to the business of MCM. We believe that the application is a reasonable application and the best possible fit under the circumstances. The staff recommends approval. We are asking you to support a growing business that's a good community partner. We are requesting that you approve the rezoning from RL to BC. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Any other comment?
My name is Barbara Poreski, and I live at 3905 Barbara Lane. I am a member of the Manhattan Riley County Preservation Alliance and their treasurer. And I'd like to just mention one or 2 points. Referring back to the rezoning standards, number 1 asks that you consider the existing use of the property, its physical and environmental characteristics, its zoning history, and its suitability for uses it is currently restricted to. Although the property has been cleared and is now being temporarily used as a construction storage lot, it does remain both suitable and desirable for residential uses as currently zoned. It is at the east end of a historic neighborhood and shares the neighborhood's large lot characteristics and the south boundary with the linear park. The property's east line also shares a boundary with a linear park area that includes a mature north to south tree line, which provides excellent screening and buffering for the property and neighborhood from the commercial activity that has long occurred north of Pottawatomie Avenue. Temple Lane is located along the west boundary. It's been suggested that this is a reasonable into the neighborhood. I don't see it that way. If you drive down Pottawatomie, it's all commercial on the north side. It's all residential on the other side, continuing reasonably right into that triangular park at the end. And it would be reasonable to leave it that way. The Temple Lane does provide access to agricultural land and future park expansion south of the linear park. Its low slope and low traffic volumes have provided excellent access to the linear trail for users, and it's provided security and comfort to trail users as it, along with the rest of the neighborhood, has been occupied every day of the year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else care to comment?
Good evening. My name is Diana Caldwell, and I reside at 2605 Kimball Avenue here in Manhattan. And I am a member of the Manhattan Riley County Preservation Society, or Alliance, I should say. And we're here simply to voice our opinion in favor of what it is that we feel that the residents within this zone is requesting. And so I have been asked to respond to the standard number 4 of the rezoning application. And it regards the character of the neighborhood. Although a part of the neighborhood's historic heritage was lost when the 1870s era home on the subject property was recently destroyed, the former Riverside neighborhood still has much physical fabric remaining, including the large brick home located directly west of the subject property. Now, this home was built by Judge John Pfeiffer, who was head of the Cincinnati and Kansas Land Company, whose members arrived on the steamboat Hartford. Judge Pfeiffer was Manhattan's first mayor, first postmaster, and he helped organize the Methodist Church while the Hartford was en route to Kansas. Now, the large lot sizes that characterize many properties in the neighborhood really do provide adequate distance from commercial activities that are historically located north of Pottawatomie Avenue. This physical separation, along with the surrounding linear trail park, has allowed neighborhood and community residents peaceful enjoyment for generations. Please let that continue. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Hi, good evening, Commission. My name is Seamus Neal, and I live at 7820 Cedar Creek Road here in Manhattan. And I'm here tonight readdressing, I had apologized for lack of public speaking experience, but I appreciate being here tonight to address my massage therapy license.
Okay,
that was
time out. This is public comment only for this rezoning.
Oh, my bad.
Yep, so
Okay.
go ahead and have a seat here.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. Actually, the open comment for that would have been at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So you missed that opportunity.
Yes, and I apologize for my tardiness tonight. I didn't realize the time.
Send us an email.
Okay.
Okay. Or come back next month again. Any other people want to comment on the rezoning part in front of us right now? Move fast.
Good evening. I'm Mel Boris, and I live at 1918 Humboldt Street. Please consider how misleading information contained in the city staff report has misinformed you, the planning board, and the public during this quasi-judicial process, and how this fact has compromised the due process rights of citizens. If you are still considering voting to approve the spot zoning proposals, please state for the record how it complies with the illegal quasi-judicial process and rezoning standards 1, 2, and 5 the planning board cited to not recommend approval. If you cannot or will not do so, please table this spot zoning request until you can. Here's some of the misinformation contained in the city's report related to rezoning standards 1, 2, and 5. The report in part states, the future land use map of the comprehensive plan identifies subject property at a point of transition between commercial land north of Pottawatomie Avenue and a residential land use designation extending south of Pottawatomie Avenue to the south boundary of the city of Manhattan. This statement is false and misleading. The south boundary, the future land use map identifies the property only as being at the east end of a stable neighborhood adjoining a linear park on its east and south borders. There is no map or text in the comprehensive plan that identifies this property as a point of transition between anything. In addition, the comprehensive plan does not identify this property or the neighborhood as a future development opportunity zone. It shares the same Pottawatomie Avenue separation from commercial activity and large parcel sizes as the rest of the neighborhood, as well as the common neighborhood linear park border on its south, plus the additional parkland on its east border. The report's description of zoning and land uses of nearby property is misleading and partially false. It admits the property and the neighborhood share a common south boundary with the linear park. It also states there is industrial commercial services located east of the subject property instead of only parkland. It is assumed this false east identification is necessary for the report's Standard 5 rationale, which is in part states, as sought, the business commercial district is to provide for small-scale commercial office and other non-residential uses, which is regarded as suitable transitional land use between higher intensity commercial and industrial uses and lower intensity residential uses. Accordingly, the office use provides a step down of land use intensity or a buffer between two otherwise conflicting land use areas. These statements are subjective, misleading, incomplete, and false. There is no need to provide a step down of land use intensity or a buffer between the East Parkland and neighborhood. To state that a commercial district is needed to ensure compatibility between the neighborhood and its East Parkland is absurd. It also admits the fact that business commercial zoning also allows other permitted uses such as large apartment complexes, drive-through banks, medical labs, commercial kitchens, private clubs, telecommunication facilities, shooting ranges, and event venues. The report states, based on the established pattern of zoning and land use, the subject property is no longer considered suitable solely for single-family residential land uses as presently restricted by the RL district. This statement is subjective and misleading. If our strategic land use plan continues to be ignored and misrepresented by the city, wouldn't this be the same situation for all property located in neighborhoods without restrictive covenant protection or historic district protection if someone requests spot zoning? The report states, bounded by higher intensity commercial use to the north, the subject's property continue viability for low and moderate density residential land use is considered compromised. This statement is subjective and misleading. Considered compromised by who? Certainly not by the previous owner who enjoyed living on the property for many years, or by those who wanted to purchase it for continued residential use. The large property size and broad avenue separate this property and the neighborhood from the long established.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comment. The next step would be for the applicant to provide any other clarification or information that you feel they need to or not. Okay, Stephanie, any other staff clarification you want to provide?
Yep, just a few. First off, this is not a situation of spot zoning, just to clarify. To give you an example, if you can see on the screen showing here where it says Pierre in Colorado, if we were to go in the middle of that large residential area and put a commercial use or an industrial use, that's an example of spot zoning. Here we already have commercial adjacent to, and the future land use map references that potential use. And I'll go back to saying that the future land use map is not specific by parcel. If before we had GIS, it was more of a watercolor approach. Now it actually draws very specific lines on a map, which sometimes doesn't help in situations like this. The other item that I would clarify is if I went back to, and I might do this. Just going to switch maps for you real quick. When we look at our zoning map today, this parcel, even though it is used as parkland, is actually zoned industrial commercial services. So if the city were to, I believe we own this, if the city were to sell this off, it could be potentially developed as ICS. The last item that I would note is that some of I did provide you a list of all the permitted uses per the MDC. There were some that were recently referenced that would either be a limited use or a conditional use. Again, that would require further analysis from community development staff, or in a conditional use situation, that would actually go before the planning board for them to be able to approve that as a use.
All right, while you're there, you have anything else right now?
Nope, I don't believe so.
So go back to, or which one you want, John?
This one?
One with the star.
The future land use map.
So, but let me, I'll just say, anything south of the levee in that area is considered a flow, and you can't build any buildings down there.
No,
So,
you cannot.
Okay, there's no hope for developing a riverfront casino down there or anything, because that's in the floodplain.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so nothing's gonna happen there but grassland and/or something on stilts.
And then, as you pointed out, while that's park, it's zoned industrial use.
Correct. So I'll switch back. So this is all shown as parkland on the future land use map because that is what we intend for it to be. However, again, we can deviate from this to some extent. So if this were to be sold off, it could develop into something else, permitted use under the ICS right now.
Is that what was referred to in our materials as the southeast park?
Yes, that's this
Is that what you're
whole
pointing
right
out
here.
now?
Yep, and it's on the other side of the levee. So
Didn't
the
have-
levee separates that from MCM's property.
Thank you.
So you can't build on that part either?
This, no.
Yeah, okay.
It would have to be something, as we start to look potentially at riverfront development, it would need to be something that could withstand flooding. That's really why this hasn't had any development occur.
Okay. Any other questions for Stephanie? All right, thank you. All right, we will go to commission discussion or motion or weigh in on it.
Get that star back.
Get that star back up.
Please.
Please.
Yeah, when I look at this, and I also was taking notes when everyone was talking, I kind of saw two themes that were somewhat contradictory. One was, in a sense, how terrible the area is because of all the traffic and the increase of it and the industrial use, to comments being made that we need to move MCM because it just doesn't fit there anymore. To the reverse of that is how desirable it is with proximity to downtown, the trails and the possible riverfront, which I'd say is somewhat contradictory because it's not really been a high investment area that we've seen people really interested in to go in and develop, as we've seen houses deteriorate right down in that area. And then when you look at it, and the reason I wanted this back up, because it makes it easy to see with the star in there, this property is really what you'd say is the least desirable because it's the most entrenched in the industrial area over there, and then has Temple that comes, next to it, and then you have Howie's container yard, so to speak, that's right back there. So you're gonna have that high amount of traffic and everything else doing, and the trucks turning in to go that way are going to come through. And then obviously, as the more you go, as I'm facing it to the left, the more desirable you're going to get because you're going to be farther away from all that congestion. It seems like a lot of the fear, the concern of the neighborhood is really that this just keeps happening and it keeps going down. And it's not something we can really address because we're only addressing this here. And it's even said, if you read through the documents, is looking at Temple being that new dividing line, and it does really seem to fit because you just have that little piece that's off to the end there. Now, they wanted it industrial, but it was said no, so there's, business commercial, as was already mentioned, is that compromise. And I appreciate you saying now there's people willing to invest and build there, but they haven't been willing to do that for years before. And what you're going to get is, yes, it's still an industrial building, but it's more, I should say it's a business commercial building, not an industrial building. It's not going to have all-night operations or a high amount of people in it or traffic, given I know any use could be done after we, not any, but they don't have to necessarily do exactly what they've told us tonight, but I trust that they will. I really appreciate the neighborhood people getting together. I have a history of turning down many projects where the neighborhood has been against it. But this one, frankly, really seems like what will improve the area, or we go by the hope that someone's going to invest money in this later, but you have to assume that they're gonna sell the property or do something else, because they're the property owners right now. And I'm on about every housing group there is in town, and is working on the problem of housing, but I don't think this one plot here is, going to make a major impact. Although given, yes, if we do this over and over again, it could have, some sort of impact on that bigger initiative. So anyway, that's just comments I wanted to make.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just have a question, maybe Stephanie can answer. I mean, the lots directly to the west of it, I know one lady spoke 2 lots down. What is their thoughts on this?
So the one immediately,
You may have to go with the other map.
So the one immediately to the west, this one's currently vacant. It was spoke about today. This one, I believe, is the one that is right now in probate. I don't know if anyone's currently residing there or not. I would have to have the applicant maybe speak to that. I believe this is the only residential property, though, that was noticed when that was referenced earlier. This is the only one that was within that statutory 200-foot notification radius.
Okay, and we don't know the owner of that, it's not?
Well, it's Scott.
That's Scott.
Or his family.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard, okay. And then that lot north of it is, who owns that?
Across Pottawatomie?
I can look on GIS
That's
for
okay,
you
hold
real
on, I
quick.
got it.
That area right there.
Just, the north is, MCM has the one straight north of Scott's house.
This one.
Oh, that one there, it's some somebody, the square one in the middle that doesn't have a house on it?
Correct, the vacant.
Some acquisition trust something. Okay, all right, and that's the thing you're trying to get cleared up.
All right.
Did I misspeak? Then that's the one that's in probate right now, is the vacant one.
Is that the vacant lot or the, okay.
Here, we can quickly solve this. There you go, Nation Star Acquisition Trust. And yes, Mr. Sewell.
Now go to the left, to the small, narrow lot.
To this one?
Yeah,
That's
the one
Maggie's.
north of the Sewell
Yeah,
house.
that's,
That is
Okay,
Maggie.
Maggie, you talked earlier.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
okay.
So it doesn't show a house on it.
Well, down there at the
Either-
bottom.
It's right
at
here.
the bottom.
No, I'm talking about, up,
This one?
Yeah, it's,
there's the big square right across from the house, 40, the one,
So here's the tract that we're speaking of tonight, 407. The one immediately west is currently vacant.
right?
There's a
And then the
home
one
here.
immediately west of that, the narrow one.
there's a
Oh,
house
this
at the
is
bottom.
part of right-of-way.
Part of
That's for
right-of-way.
Fifth Street, yeah.
So it's not a lot.
Nope, it is not.
And right of way to where?
I'm guessing that Fifth Street used to actually come down, and then that's probably been vacated since then, or the roadway never went through. I'm not, Rob doesn't know either.
We don't know.
But it's not owned by, it would be just owned, it's
Uh-huh. Okay.
probably the city or
I just,
county.
we weren't, nobody was talking about that one, so that's what I wanted cleared up. Thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments? Well, yeah, the time to have worried about that house was, 3 or 4 years ago when it was in disrepair, and that's when the historic people should have swooped in and if it was worth saving at that point. I agree, the other house on 431 looks like it was a really cool house at one point, but it's got at least 6 sheets of plywood covering up different parts of it, so you got a big job ahead of you to fix that up nicely. But, yeah, my point is that, right there, you got stuff across, up north, things to the northeast. You can't build anything to the south because it's in the floodplain. So, I don't really see how, which is, I think, why it wasn't saved, because on the big scheme of things, that area, that lot isn't all that desirable as a single-family home anymore. And so with all the other commercial stuff on the north side there, I just think sticking that little one there as commercial wouldn't be a big deal. Now, I may have trouble rezoning the next one going west at some point if we're around and that happens. But for this part here, a building that's maintained with a parking lot would be a darn sight better than it continuing to be used as a staging storage area, which I'm no doubt that that's what would happen, because if you got vacant land, you're going to put something on it. and a house, and a building would be a whole lot better for everybody involved than for just to let it get stuff accumulated on it, so. Linda?
Yeah. This is difficult for me because I appreciate so many neighbors and residents coming forward, and which means they're passionate about what they're doing. The company is passionate about its desires too, and it's just I stumble over this. Overall, I think I'm going to approve it. But if I'm, and I may not be on the commission in some years to come, but I would not approve going west of Temple. Just to lay that marker down, because that is truly intruding into the residential area. Once this house was gone, it just becomes a part of the landscape and I can see the desirability of having a nice new building for training. I don't see that the use that's expected, at least as it's been described, will be an added burden to the neighborhood. With 4 employees on a regular basis, there may be as many as 25 a few times a year, but I appreciate the effort to make it historic, and I do believe that house across Temple to the west is, and but I think I can get to this point to approve it.
All right, is there anybody?
With the interpretation, I mean, I stumble over sometimes the staff's interpretation of things too, but I think on the whole, I have to come down on approving this.
Yeah, I want to make one other comment. I visited the lot and walked around on it, and I talked to some of the people at MCM by phone, so I want to make that clear. And to me, this thing made sense, on the surface, because I think if I lived next to it, it wouldn't bother me if they built this building and it was done that way. But I'm also on record, philosophically, I said this 10 years ago, and I think I voted that way consistently, that if everybody that owns the surrounding property agrees with the rezoning, then I support it. But if the people that live directly next to it do not support it, then even though I think it's a good plan, I got to go with the neighbors, because that's how I felt about my neighborhood. There was an acre next to me, they tried to rezone it and do things to it, so I just bought it. But I had the capability to do that, and my buddy Charlie Kalp helped me, and we just bought it and said, fine, now nobody's not going to do anything with it, I'm growing tomatoes on it. And that's that, because, so basically my philosophy has always been that, and I think I voted once to rezone something. It was by a school, they put a parking lot there, but every one of the neighbors said, fine, no problem, tear the house down, put a school there. And my philosophy's been that if I buy a piece of property in a town, and I look at the zoning, my expectation is that it will not change, unless there's some really super good reason. And I wish MCM could have convinced the neighbors that this is maybe a better way to go, because I agree with what John said. That dilapidated house that was there for how long, that didn't seem to bother anybody. But they've improved it by removing that house. But I think that, that's my dilemma. I'm weighing those. I want to vote to approve it, but I've always had that philosophy that the neighbors trump everybody else on vote. So I'm going to vote not to rezone it.
You didn't believe that way on the MCM Business Park out there when the people in Random Woods were complaining. But
Yeah,
they're,
but that
they're not
was-
in the city limits.
Yeah, they weren't in the city limits, that's one reason. And it wasn't zoned, but that's how I voted for 10 years. So that's the dilemma I've got. And that's why I wanted to know who owned the 2 lots and how they felt about it. So we can always send it back to the planning board.
All right. Well, is there a motion? I would move, go ahead, John, you got more to say?
Well, I was just gonna make a motion to send it back to the planning board, but.
Yep, if you got it, that's what I was going to read too. If you got it.
Do we have a written thing for
Yep.
that?
I move that we remand the item to the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board for further consideration.
I think you have to ask them to consider certain things.
I want to take into account the staff report regarding the property.
Is that adequate, Stephanie?
Well, to be honest,
Katie?
I don't think it is, but I would kind of guide you, and maybe Katie can weigh in too. The planning board cited several factors, so 1, 2, and 5. If there is one of those that maybe you wanted them to reconsider. Katie, do you have thoughts?
I would suggest the same thing. That'd be, if you can, you as the commission can call out one of those or all three of those to look at with any comments, that would be shared with the planning board.
Well, I would say on number 5, it really would be compatible with the nearby property based on the fact that the alternative is a vacant lot full of potentially stored crud, weeds, and snakes and stuff, among other things, if you got it.
Because it's totally surrounded by industrial uses right now.
There you go. All right, that was the second too. Okay, so we have a
Clarifying second.
Second, there you go. Moved and seconded to remand it to the Urban Area Planning Board for further consideration. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Morse?
No.
Mayor Hattasol?
Yes?
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Motta?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1.
All right, so back to the planning board.
3 votes to go to the planning board.
All right, that is the extent of our general agenda for this evening. Thanks for coming. We're going to adjourn into executive session. I move that we recess into executive session to discuss the purchase of property for public works purposes pursuant to the exceptions set forth in KSA 7543-19B6 related to preliminary discussions related to the acquisition of real estate, and to resume the open meeting at 8:15 in the city commission room.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Hattasol?
Yes?
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Motta?
Yes.
Commissioner Morse?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
See you at 8:15. was. There. Oh, must be in here. All right, hold on, here we go. Look, one more. Okay. No binding action was taken during executive session, therefore no vote in the open meeting is needed. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Then moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse,
Yes.
Mayor Hassel.
Yes,
Motion carries 4-0.
meeting adjourned.
Thank you.